Well, here in the UK, Project Ocean's been launched this week. It's a joint venture between the marine conservation community, non-government organisations and celebrities and artists and the high street store Selfridges. Its aim is to increase awareness, raise funds and call on consumers to address the issue around marine sustainability. Well, two of the people involved join us here in the studio. Jonathan Baillie from the Zoological Society of London and designer Katharine Hamnett. Thank you both for being here. Jonathan, if I could start with you in simple terms. I know I tried it there, but in even simpler terms perhaps. What's wrong with the system at the moment?
Well, basically, when I was born, about 10% of the world's fish stocks were over-harvested. So now we're looking at about 30%. And if you look at a whole, about 85% of the world's fish stocks are fully overexploited. Now, if these trends continue, we'll be in a situation where most of the world's fish stocks will have collapsed by around 2050 or thereabouts. And this is really bad for people and it's bad for biodiversity because there are about 170 million people dependent on the fishery sector for jobs. If you include families, it's much more. The industry as a whole is worth about 200 billion per annum. And there's more than 1 billion people dependent on this for their primary source of protein.
Okay, and just briefly, I talked there about these quotas and system. What are they trying to achieve? People know about all these fish being thrown overboard, but how will this help? How this new regime?
Well, in the past we thought that the ocean's resources were just limitless and we could go out and take as much as we want. And we're now realizing that we need to set up some sort of ownership scheme so there's some relationship between the fishermen and the fish they're catching so that there's not an incentive to just go out and catch more and more. So when we set up these structures, we give rights to fishermen for specific area, specific amount of catch that they're responsible for. That limits the amount that's going to be caught in total, and it makes a much more responsible system. Okay.
So, Katharine Hamnett, clearly there is a problem, quite a complex issue, there is a problem. But there are some people who are going to say, well, what on earth is an upmarket store like Selfridges doing? I mean, Selfridges is all about consumption, and arguably the problem is, as Jonathan's pointed out, is kind of overconsumption. I mean, is a department store the right people to be involved in a thing like this?
Well, I think so, because Selfridges is a glamorous department store. I think it won the prize for being like the best department store in the world. And people kind of follow their heroes. And if they're saying that we should only be eating Marine Stewardship Council, MSC short, certified fish, then people are going to think, oh, well, that's the trendy thing to do. And if they're saying, you know, we shouldn't be eating tuna, as somebody said, the fashion for sushi is threatening the extinction of a species, then I think people will listen. And it makes them also curious. People inform themselves. Once people have got the information, then we can expect them to do the right thing. But I think this is a huge stimulus in public awareness, and it's bringing a spotlight on these issues that we have to deal with now before it's too late.
If you're sitting at home, isn't there a kind of element of mixed messaging here? Because on the one hand, you're constantly told, you know, stop eating so much red meat, fish is a good thing. And then when they hear this kind of thing, they'll think, oh, maybe we shouldn't be touching fish either.
I think people are being told to eat more vegetables. I think that's the thing. And they're being told to switch from red meat to fish. You know, you can eat fish. There's farmed fish. There's aquaponically farmed fish, which grows vegetables at the same time as fish, so that you can eat fish. But if you eat fish more selectively, you go for line for caught, you go for Marine Stewardship Council certified, you're going to make sure that your children and your grandchildren are also going to be able to eat fish.
But you know better than anyone else, you go for that kind of fish and it costs a lot of money. There's an economic argument here, isn't there?
Well, you could be eating a cheaper fish, but how long are you going to be eating it for? I mean, I think, you know, they're taking a lead, and I think you've got people like Sainsbury's who are being responsible, M&S and Tesco slightly less responsible, but this should be, you know, it's a wake-up call, I think, to anybody who's selling fish.
Yes,
and it doesn't always have to be a lot more expensive. And what we're really trying to do is give people the option. So we want people to essentially vote with their fork and keep the message very simple. If you go into a store or if you go into a restaurant, they're serving a threatened fish, you just say no and walk out. And eventually it's going to drive the industry and people will start serving sustainably sourced fish. There's a guide here which we've put out, which is very simple. It tells you which fish you can eat, which fish you can't eat, and it provides some alternatives. There's also an app we've developed. You can download the app. You're in a restaurant.
On your smartphone.
Exactly. So you can find out which restaurants are serving sustainably sourced fish, which fish you might want to eat. And that's really the first thing to really engage people. And the second message is fish need some sort of safe haven in the oceans. So we have about 1% of the world's oceans protected now, and we want 30% in the future.
We had about 4 or 5 minutes and run out of time already. Katharine, Hamnett, Jonathan Baillie, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.